Hey everybody, Mike Naso from IPR with the latest on the tropics. A lot to get to today, so this is probably going to be a long update, but I'll try and go as fast as I can. Here's a map of Hurricane Isidore, September 2002. Began very far south at 10 north and opened up to a wave, and then regenerated near Jamaica and was able to attain major hurricane strength. High pressure bumped that one in to the Yucatan, but notice the track here, okay, up towards the Gulf. Just a couple of weeks after that, Lily also took a track very near Jamaica, but this time to the north, over western Cuba into the Gulf. Then last year, Hurricane Dennis took a more northerly track over eastern Cuba, and then in towards Florida in the eastern Gulf, and Hurricane Emily went south of Jamaica in through the Yucatan into northern Mexico. So you see what we're kind of dealing with those four hurricanes I chose, because I'm going to talk about a few things here. This is Tropical Depression 5, forecast to become Tropical Storm Ernesto. It almost did today, not quite though. There's Debbie, clearly weakening and is going to get drawn north rapidly, and I don't think it has a shot at becoming a hurricane, but the Hurricane Center thinks so. And we're going to talk about the pattern here that's going to come into play for 2B Ernesto, and that's going to be a significant feature, I think. Here's the latest on TD5, 35-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 45, and they've had gusts in the 50s in the Windward Islands. Moving west at 21, that's very important because that's fast. 1,007 millibars, and you can see the track here by later tonight, early Friday morning, this time tomorrow, this time Saturday south of Haiti, this time Sunday approaching southern coast of Jamaica, and it's probably going to ride around Jamaica, and then by this time Tuesday somewhere out here near the Yucatan Channel. Now, I want to tell you this. I am just about dead on with the Hurricane Center track in my own personal thinking. I think maybe it's going to continue more west-northwesterly due to some of the shear rather than due west, but nevertheless, I think in 5 days it's going to be right in this area here. But there's a large potential cone where it can go here for sure, so a lot of time to watch it. Here's the visible satellite throughout the day, and you could see there goes the exposed center earlier today, and Recon went out there and they flew down here, and that center dissipated, and then they found the new one and was able to intensify now. And as the sun goes down, you can see thunderstorms blowing right up over the center, which is a sign that things are getting better organized with it. Here's the model guidance spread, and you can see a lot of the models are up to the north, the GFDL way up here. And even the BAMs are pretty far north, considering the eventual track towards the Gulf of Mexico, and considering the movement now, that is pretty far north. But I'm with them. I think track generally west-northwestward towards the Yucatan Peninsula, either the extreme northern, northeastern tip, Cancun, western Cuba, or the Yucatan Channel, somewhere in there. I do not think this is going to go over western Cuba, but I could very easily be wrong. And I'll tell you why. Here's the Canadian 12Z, and this is the shear forecast. Now you see right now a lot of strong wind shear moving from west to east right over it with the tropical upper tropospheric trough. Now this system in here, in fact let me make that black, this system in here has a little bit of a safe harbor for the next say 12-24 hours, as the shear will kind of enhance the northern side of it. If it tries to move northwest, it's in trouble. Now notice by 24 hours what's happening with the Canadian. Our system's in here and still has that good outflow, but is very close to the coast, still weak. But by 48 hours, notice what starts to happen. This upper level low in here starts to break away, and you start to get good outflow to the south and to the east side of the storm. And then basically by 72 hours what you have is a very bad situation when you basically have two upper level lows, both helping to ventilate the storm. And by this time it has the storm south of Cuba in about 3 days, which is very possible if it continues this fast movement. Charlie moved fast, so did Chantal. Chantal didn't develop, Charlie did. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but in the case of the Canadian, 120 hours, clearly a very well organized pattern here, with a hurricane bearing down on the Texas coast and making landfall in about 6 days in middle Texas. Now that has been consistent. A lot of the model runs have not. That's why I mentioned it. But I think that scenario with the upper level features may play out. You can see right now 40, 30 knots of shear over the top of it, but it's down here, so it's actually literally over the top of it, over the north side. And if this can continue, even if it moves west-northwest it probably has a shot at some slow but steady development. Now here's September 15th, 2002. There's our open wave that was TD10. And notice you had a similar feature. You had very strong shear from this upper feature. But what happened? That backed away, and it became Hurricane Isidore, and it got into the Gulf of Mexico with a pattern. Luckily, it went in the Yucatan. Thankfully, it did, because with this pattern it had, it would have been Katrina. But that's the same thing that happened to Isidore, and I'm very concerned that this could happen with Ernesto as it heads up in this direction. There's the winds blowing in this general direction. It's all going to be timing with it, but right now I think the cards are in its favor for sure. And by the time it gets to the Gulf of Mexico, it could strengthen into a strong hurricane. Here's Tropical Storm Debbie, 50 miles an hour, moving northwest, still forecast to turn and become a hurricane, but I doubt it will. Looking at it, looks pretty puny. It could still become a hurricane, but at this time, I mean, look at the water vapor. I mean, this thing's getting crushed with dry air, so very unfavorable conditions, and you can see it there kind of moving on off. Another wave about to exit Africa, this one far north. It'll probably end up turning to potentially, but then there's a chance it could slide westward under a ridge. But with how far north it would be, I would think it would probably follow in Debbie's footsteps. Another wave behind that. So active on the ITCZ. Hurricane Eliana weakening down to 100 miles an hour. And just barely a Category 2 hurricane, forecast to move westward and weaken some more. You can see it there. Not really a bad looking satellite presentation. No real signs of shear and no real signs of dry air, so it's probably upwelled itself or just kind of ran out of energy. It happens. Hurricane Ioki, an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane out in the Central Pacific. You don't get them out there often, gusting to 180. If any of these little islands or any ships or anything is in the path of this, they're in trouble. West-northwest at 6, 935 millibars, and I think it's probably a little stronger than that. And it's going to move west as a Category 4 and remain a major hurricane as it crosses the date line and becomes Typhoon Ioki. But look at it now. I mean, this reminds me of Isabel when it was in the mid-Atlantic with this jet. Look at that. Strengthening pretty good. We'll keep an eye on TD5. I think it could be a significant system in the Western Caribbean.